The silence of the desert is a heavy thing. It's not just the absence of noise. It's a physical weight that presses against your eardrums, reminding you that you are miles from civilization, miles from help, and entirely on your own. But that silence was shattered in a heartbeat, not by the roar of an engine or the crack of thunder, but by the trembling voice of a child. It was a sound that cut through the hardened exterior of 7 grown men like a hot knife through butter. The girl, no older than 12, stood there, in her worn-out sneakers, her knuckles white as she gripped a cracked iPhone. She didn't look at the massive Harleys parked in the gravel. She didn't look at the patches on our vests that usually made people cross the street to avoid us. She looked straight into my eyes, her pupils dilated with sheer terror, and whispered 5 words that froze the blood in my veins. "I think you're being watched." Before I could even ask her what she meant, she turned the screen toward me. What I saw in that glowing rectangle wasn't a game, and it wasn't a selfie. It was a live video feed. And the subject of the video was me. It was us, taken from a vantage point just a few hundred yards away. A red crosshair was drifting slowly from my chest to the head of the brother sitting next to me. Welcome back to the fire, everyone. You've tuned in to B. Iker's Stores, and I'm glad you pulled over to join us. This is the place where the road meets the soul, where we talk about the things that happen when the kickstand is down and the sun is setting. If you're ready to ride along with us on this journey, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It helps us keep the fire burning and the stories coming. Tonight's tale is a heavy one. It's about intuition, unexpected guardians, and the darkness that hides in plain sight. So, grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's drift back to that dusty evening in Nevada. To understand the fear that gripped us that night, you have to understand the setting. We were at a place called Sal's Oasis, which is a generous name for what was essentially a cinder-block box with a gas pump out front, sitting on a forgotten stretch of highway somewhere between Reno and nowhere. It was the kind of place where the heat ripples off the asphalt so thick it looks like water, and the only company you have is the buzzing of flies and the hum of a dying neon sign. Our pack, the Iron Wanderers, had been riding hard for 10 hours. We were sun-baked, wind-blasted, and thirsty. I'm Gunner, the road captain. I've been riding for 30 years, and I like to think I've seen everything the road can throw at a man. I've seen crashes, I've seen fights, I've seen storms that could peel the paint off a tank. But I had never seen anything like Lily. We were sitting at 2 picnic tables pushed together under a rusted metal awning, trying to escape the last brutal rays of the sun. The bikes were cooling off, the metal ticking as it contracted, smelling of hot oil and rubber, the perfume of the road. We were laughing, joking about a close call Tiny had with a semi-truck earlier that day, just unwinding. That's when she walked up. She had come out of the diner, a small, fragile thing in a denim jacket that was too big for her. She had dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and eyes that looked like they had seen too much of the world already. At first, I thought she was coming to ask for money, or maybe just looking at the bikes. Kids do that. They see the chrome and the leather, and they get curious. Usually I'd smile, maybe toss them a sticker. But Lily wasn't looking at the bikes. She was walking with a strange, stiff urgency. She walked right past Tiny, who is 6'4" and looks like a grizzly bear, and came straight to me. Maybe she sensed I was the one in charge, or maybe she just picked a face. "Mister," she had said, her voice shaking. I set my coffee down. "Can I help you, kid?" I was inside, using the Wi-Fi. "My dad is in the bathroom," she stammered, glancing back toward the diner door nervously. "I have this app. It scans for open networks and Bluetooth signals. I like to see what people name their devices. It's a game. I nodded slowly, not really following, but listening. Okay. I found a signal, she said, stepping closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. It didn't have a name, just a string of numbers. But it was open, so I clicked it. That's when she said it. I think you're being watched. When she turned that phone around, the atmosphere at the table shifted instantly. You know how the air feels right before a tornado touches down? That sudden drop in pressure, that electric stillness? That's what happened. The laughter died in our throats. On her screen, there was a grainy but clear image. It was a digital zoom. It showed the back of my head. It showed Tiny's patch. It showed the grease stain on the table. And overlaid on the image was a digital readout. Distance, 240 meters. Wind, 3 miles per hour west. Elevation, +12. It was a scope feed, a digital sniper scope, or a high-end spotting scope connected to a transmitter. Someone wasn't just watching us, they were targeting us. Tiny. Don't move, I said, my voice dropping to a gravelly low pitch that my brothers knew meant serious business. Nobody make a sudden move. Act like we're looking at a funny cat video on this kid's phone. Tiny, bless his heart, froze with a half-eaten burger in his hand. Gunner, what is it? We're painted, I said. Someone has a bead on us from the ridge to the east. The panic that surged through the group was visceral. It wasn't the chaotic panic of a crowd in a fire. It was the cold, sharp panic of soldiers who realize they've walked into an ambush. Muscles tightened. Eyes began to dart toward the horizon, scanning the rocky outcrops and the scrub brush that lined the highway. But we couldn't look. If we looked, they'd know we knew. Who is it? Whispered distinctively, one of our younger riders. Cartel? Rivals? Doesn't matter, I said, my eyes glued to the girl's phone. Kid, what's your name? Lily, she whispered. Tears were welling up in her eyes. Are they going to hurt you? Not if you help us, Lily, I said, trying to sound calmer than I felt. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a piston. Is this a live stream? Is it broadcasting somewhere? Lily swiped a trembling finger across the screen. It looks like a private server. Wait, there's a chat box. She tapped a small icon in the corner. Text scrolled up the side of the feed. Target 1, center, clear. Target 2, left, obstructed. Waiting for green light. Waiting for green light, I repeated, the words tasting like ash. They're waiting for an order. I looked at Lily. This little girl, who should have been worrying about homework or boys or what video game to play, was currently the only thing standing between us and a massacre. If she hadn't been playing her little hacker game, the first we would have known about this threat would have been the sound of a gunshot and the spray of blood. Where is your dad, Lily? I asked. He's sick. He's been in the bathroom for 20 minutes, she said. Okay. Listen to me very carefully, I said, leaning in. You are the bravest kid I've ever met, but I need you to be brave for 2 more minutes. Can you do that? She nodded, biting her lip. I need you to pretend you're showing me a game. Laugh, point at the screen. Make it look natural. While you do that, I need you to see if that signal has a GPS tag. Can you do that? Lily took a deep breath. She forced a smile. It was stiff, but from 240 meters away, it would pass. She pointed at the screen and let out a forced giggle. Like this. Perfect, I said. Keep doing it. Under the table, I kicked Tiny's boot. Boys, on my signal, we aren't going for the bikes. We're going for the diner. The brick wall is the only cover we have. The bikes are gas bombs waiting to go off if a round hits a tank. The girl, Tiny asked, his lips barely moving. I've got her, I said. I found it, Lily whispered. Her fingers were flying across the screen now. For a moment, the fear was replaced by focus. She was a digital native, comfortable in the cold in a way I would never be. The signal isn't coming from the ridge. That's the camera. The signal, the control signal, is coming from that van. She tilted the phone slightly. Behind the gas station, partially obscured by a dumpster, was a faded white plumber's van. It had been there when we pulled up. We hadn't thought twice about it. The shooter is on the ridge, I analyzed rapidly. But the spotter, the guy running the feed, is in the van. That's the delay. They aren't shooting yet because the guy in the van hasn't given the order. Why? Asked Doc. Maybe they want the bikes intact. Maybe they want to kidnap one of us. Maybe they're just sickos filming a snuff film for the dark web. It doesn't matter, I growled. We have the element of surprise, but only for about 10 seconds. I looked at Lily. Lily, go to the diner door. Don't run. Walk. Tell your dad to stay in the bathroom. Get on the floor behind the counter. But go, I said gently. You saved us, Lily. Now let us do our job. She hesitated, then turned. She walked back toward the diner, clutching her phone. As soon as she crossed the threshold, the dynamic changed. Now! I roared. 7 bikers moved with an explosion of speed that defied our age and size. We didn't run away. We scrambled. Tiny and I flipped the heavy wooden picnic table onto its side, creating a makeshift barricade. The wood splintered as a high-velocity round cracked through the air, slamming into the concrete right where my head had been a second ago. Crack thump. The sound of the gunshot lagged behind the bullet. It was a long-distance shot. They're firing, Tiny yelled, drawing his own piece. We're not a criminal club, but we ride prepared. In the desert, the law is often what you carry on your hip. Suppressive fire on the ridge, I shouted. Doc, Rico, flank the van. The guy in the van is the link. Bullets kicked up dust around us. The shooter was good, but the table gave us just enough concealment. More importantly, the shooter was confused. He had lost the element of surprise. I peeked around the edge of the table. I saw the back doors of the white van fly open. A man jumped out, holding a tablet and a submachine gun. He had realized the game was up. Rico, watch out, I screamed. But Rico was already moving. He didn't go for his gun. He went for his bike. He revved the throttle of his custom Softail, popped the clutch, and launched the heavy machine forward. He wasn't riding it. He was ghost riding it. He jumped off, and the bike, 1,000 pounds of American steel, roared across the parking lot and smashed into the side of the van just as the man raised his weapon. The impact was sickening and beautiful. The van rocked violently. The man was knocked off his feet, his weapon clattering across the pavement. Doc was on him in a second, zip ties in hand. Meanwhile, on the ridge, shooting stopped. The sniper realized his spotter was down. He knew that 7 angry bikers were about to come up that hill. We heard the sound of an engine. Starting up in the hills, an ATV or a dirt bike, and fading away into the distance. He was cutting his losses. Silence returned to the desert, but this time, it was the silence of adrenaline dumping out of our systems. We stood up, dusting ourselves off, checking for holes. Miraculously, no one was hit. The heavy oak of the picnic table looked like Swiss cheese. But we were alive. I walked over to the van. The guy Doc had tied up was screaming in a language I didn't recognize, thrashing against the zippies. Inside the van, we found a setup that would make the NSA jealous. Monitors, transmitters, and a list. A list of license plates. Ours were on it, but so were others. Families, truckers, solo riders. These weren't personal enemies. They were predators hunting for sport or profit on the lonely highways. But my focus wasn't on the criminal. It was on the diner door. Slowly, the door creaked open. Lily peeked out, followed by a pale, confused-looking man who must have been her father. He looked at the overturned table, the wrecked bike, the tied-up man, and then at us. What happened? The father asked, bewildered. I walked up to Lily and knelt down on one knee, ignoring the pain in my old joints. I was covered in dust, sweating and shaking from the adrenaline, but I tried to look as gentle as I could. Lily, I said, you didn't just think we were being watched. You saw the wolf at the door before any of us did. She looked at the phone in her hand, then at me. Is it over? Yeah, kid, it's over. The police are on their way, I said. I reached into my vest pocket and pulled out a small pin. It was a guardian bell. Bikers usually hang them on their bikes to ward off road gremlins and bad luck. It was an old superstition, but in that moment, it felt like the most important thing I possessed. This is for you, I said, pressing the small pewter bell into her hand. They say these bells protect bikers, but today you were the protector. You have eyes that see what others miss. Don't ever lose that. She closed her fingers around the bell. A small, tentative smile broke through her fear. Her father, finally piecing things together, pulled her into a hug. She's always on that phone, he muttered, half in shock, half in relief. I always tell her to put it away. Don't, I said, standing up and looking the man in the eye. That phone and her smarts just saved 8 lives tonight. You've got a warrior there, Dad. Treat her like one. The police arrived about 20 minutes later. It turned out the guy in the van and his sniper friend were part of a ring that had been hijacking and robbing travelers in 3 states. They'd used the drones and cameras to scout targets, wait for them to stop at isolated spots, and then strike. They had picked us because they thought we were carrying cash or drugs. They picked the wrong pack. And they definitely picked the wrong day to mess with a girl named Lily. As we gave our statements and prepared to get back on the road, Rico's bike needed some serious duct tape surgery to be rideable. I watched Lily sitting on the tailgate of her dad's station wagon. She wasn't looking at her phone anymore. She was ringing that little bell, listening to the chime cut through the desert air. We rode out of there under a canopy of stars. The air was cooling down, but I felt a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the weather. We spent so much of our lives trying to look tough, trying to project this image of invincibility. We wear leather like armor. We ride in packs to intimidate. But that night our armor was paper-thin. We were saved not by our fists, or our guns, or our numbers. We were saved by the innocence and the sharp intuition of a 12-year-old girl who just happened to be playing a game. It made me think about how often we dismiss the people around us. We see a kid on a phone and think, disconnected generation. We see a stranger and think, not my problem. But the world is a web, a strange, invisible web where every life touches another. That night, the threads pulled tight. If Lily had stayed in the car, if she hadn't come over, if I had shooed her away, biker stories would be telling a very different tale tonight. A tale of a massacre at Sal's Oasis. So, here's the lesson I want you to take away from the fire tonight. Pay attention. Listen to the small voices. Sometimes, the warnings don't come from a burning bush or a thunderclap. Sometimes, they come from the most unlikely sources. And more importantly, never underestimate the power of simply looking out for one another. We live in a world that is constantly watching cameras, data, tracking. It can feel suffocating. But that night, being watched was the danger, and being seen, truly seen by a caring stranger, was the salvation. Next time you're out there, whether you're on 2 wheels or 4, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and if a kid walks up to you with a scared look in their eyes, you listen. You listen good, because angels don't always wear wings. Sometimes they wear worn-out sneakers and carry a cracked iPhone. Thanks for riding with me tonight. If this story chilled your bones or warmed your heart, let me know in the comments. Stay safe, keep the rubber side down, and watch your 6. Until next time, this is Bishkar Stores, signing off.